devotion, dedication. Also, you know, she's got maybe she's too humble to say, too modest to say, but she's got a great fighting spirit, no doubt. She's a warrior, goes out there and doesn't give a single game. Actually, she has probably the most bagels of anyone in women's tennis. It speaks about how seriously and professionally she's taking every single point and game on the court. So that's very admirable. I really like that kind of champion spirit and mindset.
No, yeah, I would be lying to you if I said I had no reservations. Obviously, you guys know who I am and the things I speak about, and I was pretty much on almost every player call that I could make.
The aftermath of Coco Gauff's latest clash took a turn nobody predicted, especially when Aryna Sabalenka decided that accepting defeat gracefully wasn't on the agenda. Her bitter post-match remarks did more than just alienate the fan base. They summoned the attention of the absolute last person she wanted scrutinizing her behavior. Seemingly out of nowhere, tennis legend Novak Djokovic stepped into the ring to shut down the spin she was trying to sell. He delivered a reality check to Sabalenka that has completely reversed the momentum of this entire saga. What began as standard post-game disappointment quickly spiraled into a scandal, peeling back the layers to reveal a mindset Sabalenka likely wanted to keep hidden. Djokovic ensured the world saw the situation clearly, but to understand his reaction, we have to look at the drama that erupted the moment Sabalenka left the court. I have to be honest, I don't think I managed my mental state very well out there today. That is basically the bottom line. I was handing out unforced errors left and right. I really need to go back and review the statistics. In my view, she didn't win because she played some incredible brand of tennis. She won simply because I kept messing up, missing shots that from the outside looking in should have been easy points. The second the match wrapped up, Sabalenka's composure evaporated, spilling her frustration all over the arena for everyone to see. Rather than granting Coco the customary respect due after a grueling fight, she let her annoyance drown out any semblance of sportsmanship. She avoided eye contact at the net, offered a stiff, obligatory tap of the racket, and stormed away before Coco could even finish acknowledging the crowd. But the real fireworks started during the press interviews. She actively diminished Coco's triumph, deflecting responsibility onto the weather, the court conditions, and her own blunders. She painted a picture where the match was lost due to external chaos, rather than admitting Coco had simply outplayed her at every turn. The fans picked up on the vibe instantly. Social media exploded with criticism over the shade, the passive-aggressive commentary, and her stubborn refusal to validate Coco's well-earned win. When I look at Coco's journey, especially seeing the run she made at Roland Garros, she grinded through every single match with pure determination to reach those finals. What I admire is not just her hunger for victory, but her class. She always takes the high road, regardless of the circumstances. We have all heard Sabalenka's remarks, the negativity she is spewing, claiming Coco wasn't superior, that she didn't truly beat her, implying the loss was entirely self-inflicted. But let me tell you, when you mess with the bull, you get the horns. Pundits noted how bizarre this behavior was for a veteran like Sabalenka. She is known for her intensity, sure, but this felt personal. It was sharp, dismissive, and felt like a calculated attempt to rewrite history in real time. It was the sort of quiet insult that stings more than a shouting match, creating a tension that every player in the locker room could sense. However, Sabalenka failed to account for one crucial detail. A giant of the sport was watching, someone with immense clout who wasn't buying a single word of her excuses. While the public focused on the final score, Novak Djokovic was analyzing the subtext. He was studying the energy, the body language, and the specific tone Sabalenka adopted in defeat. Djokovic has seen enough tennis to know the difference between venting frustration and crossing a line, and he recognized exactly why the fans were upset. Privately, Djokovic has always respected Coco's discipline, her professional demeanor, and her commitment to fair play. And honestly, she might be too modest to admit it herself, but she possesses an undeniable fighting spirit. She is a warrior who fights for every point. So when Sabalenka started throwing subtle jabs, Djokovic refused to let it slide. Novak isn't one to insert himself into WTA controversies usually, especially when it involves top-tier rivals. But this situation demanded an exception. Insiders claim he was baffled as to why Coco was suddenly being painted as the villain, especially given her poise. He understands the crushing weight on the shoulders of a young prodigy. He has lived it. He also knows how easily the truth gets distorted when a rival's ego takes a hit. Djokovic saw right through Sabalenka's act. This wasn't a tactical breakdown of the match. It was a defense mechanism to bruise Coco's credibility, so her own loss wouldn't sting as much. And the best part about Coco is, she stays silent. Yet these opponents, whether it is Sabalenka, Iga, or Rybakina, keep coming for her with these comments. Even back when Coco sat firmly at world number 3, the media insisted on branding them the Big Three regardless. This meant that at every turn, she had to battle not only the opponent across the net, but also the sneers of her own peers. The moment those video snippets exploded online, triggering a fierce public debate over who held the moral high ground, Novak Djokovic entered the fray, and his words were a game-changer. The second he opened his mouth, the whole vibe of this scandal did a 180. He refused to dance around the issue or take shelter behind ambiguous PR statements. Instead, he delivered his message with the sheer authority of a legend who was sick of watching this nonsense. Novak lauded Coco's icy professionalism and steel backbone, noting an integrity that even seasoned pros often lose in the heat of battle. But his method of defense was the real shocker. He never actually launched a frontal assault on Sabalenka by name, yet he painted a stark contrast between athletes who own their defeats and those who let bitterness spawn endless justifications. He stressed that Coco was blameless throughout the contest, displaying a wisdom years beyond her birth certificate, whether she was disputing a terrible call or celebrating with class. He also shined a spotlight on a detail most observers completely miss, specifically, the way Coco refuses to lower her personal bar for excellence. Novak noted that she scraps for every single ball with identical ferocity, no matter which superstar is standing opposite her. That specific brand of relentless drive, he argued, is the secret sauce of true legends. It is not about crushing forehands. It is about maintaining dignity when the pressure cooker is whistling. The whole world decoded his subtext immediately when he critiqued players who attempt to edit history post-defeat. Sabalenka's name was written in invisible ink. His signal was unmistakable, and the tennis community bridged the gap instantly. Novak's statement went viral across every platform. Supporters, pundits, and locker room peers started circulating his quotes, applauding him for intervening when the dialogue surrounding Coco grew toxic. As those soundbites made the rounds, the victim story Sabalenka attempted to construct began to disintegrate. A routine press conference had morphed into a massive cultural flashpoint. Novak ripped the veil off the reality Sabalenka wanted to bury, and the moment he chimed in, the weight of public scrutiny landed squarely on her back. Novak's choice to wade into this mess was anything but accidental. He is rarely one to chase clout through controversy, particularly involving athletes outside his own circuit, yet this scenario was unique. He witnessed a familiar injustice in Coco's treatment that triggered deep personal memories. Novak is no stranger to skewed storylines and prejudiced reporting, or opponents warping reality to soothe their pride. He understands the sting of having his honor doubted while his skills are ignored. Therefore, watching Sabalenka hint that her loss was due to external factors rather than Coco's superior play, he recognized the playbook immediately he had starred in that movie. That explains the ferocity of his response. He was doing more than just vouching for Coco's work ethic. He was attacking a systemic issue he has observed for decades, where gifted, diligent competitors are unfairly villainized just because they disrupt the script someone else wrote. Insiders reveal that privately, Novak was seething at how fast the internet mob doubted Coco's motives solely because of Sabalenka's antics. He considered it absurd that an athlete displaying such poise was being framed as the villain. In his eyes, the verdict was obvious. Coco had snatched that win, managed the heat like a grown-up, and merited adoration, not snide remarks masquerading as technical breakdown. Novak intervened because he is a die-hard advocate for justice, regularity, and ownership in the sport. He simply refused to stand by while a rising prodigy got derailed by another player's wounded vanity. His statement did double duty, shielding Coco while laying bare the ugliness of Sabalenka's conduct. As Novak's take gathered steam, the glare of publicity pivoted toward an angle Sabalenka never anticipated and certainly dreaded. The second Novak's perspective went global. The landscape shifted beneath Sabalenka's feet. Behavior she thought would be dismissed as standard competitive heat instantly became the topic of worldwide debate. Supporters who initially chalked her actions up to passion started scrutinizing the footage. Experts dissected her pressers, analyzed her handshake in slow motion, and highlighted every instance where she diminished Coco's triumph. Every subtle dig she attempted to sneak past the goalie was now glaringly obvious. Sabalenka transformed from a sympathetic loser into the antagonist who went too far, and the cause was elementary. Novak's declaration did far more than simply shield Coco. It compelled the entire sports world to take a hard, second look at the reality of that night. For the first time since walking off the court, Aryna could physically feel the tide of popular sentiment crashing down upon her. Online forums erupted, with supporters arguing that if a legend like Novak saw the truth, then Coco's victory was undeniable and the disrespect was baseless. Even the typically unbiased press began insinuating that Sabalenka had allowed her temper to completely hijack her performance. She chose to remain mute, yet that very absence of speech only served to tighten the suffocating tension hanging in the air. With each 24 hours that drifted by void of an explanation, it appeared increasingly likely she had no justification for her actions. As Novak's tribute to Coco circulated wider, Aryna's efforts to revise history looked increasingly petty and insignificant. The true nightmare for Sabalenka was that she never anticipated this little spark would ignite such a rapid inferno. What began as minor shade had morphed into an uncontrollable firestorm, fueled by the immense weight and reach of Djokovic's authority. His influence made evading the fallout futile, yet the reality remains that this friction didn't originate with the post-game remarks. The genesis was on the clay itself, a pressure cooker of feelings where Coco was compelled to transcend the chaos directed at her. From the opening serve, the contest was nothing short of a gladiatorial battle. Aryna launched an all-out assault, aiming to crush her opponent with brute force, and initially, it seemed she held the reins. Her delivery was lethal, her strikes were thunderous, and the spectators buzzed with the mounting electricity of each exchange. Sabalenka flourishes in disorder, and she attempted to pull Coco right into the heart of that storm. Yet, the American refused to break. Rather than meeting fire with fire, she adopted a radically different strategy. She remained cool, methodical, and exercised a discipline that was almost terrifying to watch. While Aryna shrieked in anger or pulverized the ball in rage, Coco simply narrowed her focus and dug her heels in further. That stoic demeanor, that absolute quiet, irritated her rival far more than any rally could have. Coco wasn't merely returning shots. She was conducting the tempo, commanding the court, and driving Aryna into errors born of mental collapse. As the teenager's poise solidified, the veteran's stability completely disintegrated. By the deciding set, the hierarchy was undeniable. Coco had outmaneuvered, outthought, and simply outendured her adversary. The very serenity Aryna attempted to ridicule was the precise weapon that secured her defeat, a fact she secretly recognized. That realization made her subsequent antics burn even hotter, as the scoreboard left absolutely zero space for justification. However, this was hardly the debut of Coco's resilience in the presence of rudeness or inequity. Her entire professional journey is defined by self-advocacy during awkward encounters, a legacy that heavily influenced Novak's fierce protection. Coco Gauff has never been one to allow insults or substandard treatment to pass unchecked. Since she was a child prodigy, she established a name for maintaining grace under fire while vocalizing when lines were crossed. This is precisely why the Serbian legend intervened so boldly. He knows she navigates crises with wisdom, truth, and equity. A prime illustration remains her infamous confrontation with Laura Siegemund at the US Open. The German player persistently delayed the game, abusing the clock while the official sat largely passive. Rather than suffering in silence, Coco approached the chair and insisted on the rules being applied universally. The stadium instantly backed her, recognizing the dignified yet iron-willed manner in which she managed the dispute. It proved she possesses the courage to confront injustice, regardless of the tension it creates, cementing her identity long before the Sabalenka incident. She avoids psychological warfare and blame games, preferring to anchor herself in quiet self-assurance. Thus, when Aryna attempted to twist the story post-game, the audience was already well-versed in Coco's history. Novak was equally aware, which is why his endorsement struck such a chord. He wasn't vouching for a troublemaker. He was standing tall for a competitor who has repeatedly demonstrated unshakable moral character. Due to this established past, the weight of Novak's words is crushing down exactly where it should on Aryna. The moment his statement trended globally, the script was rewritten, leaving Coco Gauff looking more formidable than ever. She was lauded for her serenity, her adult perspective, and her consummate class. Rather than getting dragged into the mud, Coco saw her stock rise, while Sabalenka found herself under a glare she hadn't anticipated. What she assumed was standard competitive venting was suddenly framed as a systemic habit of rudeness. Videos of her outbursts saturated the internet, prompting commentators to openly critique her conduct. Her refusal to speak offered no relief. If anything, it only added weight to the avalanche of criticism. Meanwhile, Djokovic's bold move didn't just cause a stir. It ignited a massive debate about how true champions handle defeat. The world instantly contrasted Coco's icy composure with Sabalenka's defensive stance. And the difference was night and day. In the court of public opinion, Gauff was the clear winner. Novak was hailed as a guardian of integrity, while Sabalenka found herself blindsided by a tidal wave of criticism she never anticipated. This wasn't just a nod of support for Coco. Djokovic single-handedly flipped the script on this entire saga. But now, the ball is in your court. Do you believe Djokovic was justified in calling out Sabalenka's attitude? Did she step out of bounds with her remarks? And has Coco Gauff just written the new playbook for grace under pressure? Sound off in the comments section below. We want to hear your take, because this heated conversation is nowhere near finished.